It might be cold out there, but that doesn't mean I don't have camping on my mind. 2 opportunities are coming up, and you can join me because I'll be at both of them with a 20% flash sale. Versus Man Camp, it's a weekend primitive camping experience for guys. It comes this October, and maybe you can't wait that long. That's all right, because there's Couples Camp, a camping experience for married couples. That's coming this spring at the end of April. Both camps are in Southeast Ohio, and I can't wait for both of them. They're like a highlight weekend for me, or weekends for me. A 20% off flash sale is happening February 19th to March 1st. If you want more information and all the relevant links, go to crossroads.net/camps. I'll see you out there. Welcome to The Aggressive Life. We're going to have fun today. I'll tell you why we're going to have fun today. We're going to have fun today because we're talking to a guy who I've got a lot in common with, yet he is way beyond me in terms of aggression. The dude likes motorcycles. The guy actually historically has been a man of the cloth, but he's done things that I've not done. How about names like Coffin Cheaters, Brothers in Arms, Iron Horsemen, Devil's Disciples, Satan's Angels, and The Lost Children? Those are just a handful of the nearly 30 outlaw motorcycle clubs that were circling around the urban hub of my adopted hometown, where I live right now, Cincinnati, Ohio, in the late 60s and early 70s. And in sections of town where they lived, the motorcycle clubs, they ruled the roost. They owned the streets. They did as they pleased, and most people tried to stay out of their way. That was until a young United Methodist pastor moved to a shrinking church in one of the city's most violent and dangerous areas. In '69, Gene Skip, as we know him by, Skipworth, moved to the Northside United Methodist Church. He naively came in thinking he'd walk the streets of the neighborhood and people would flock to his church, maybe do a little contact work, maybe do some loving on people. Instead, he comes face to face with these motorcycle clubs, and he walked home after his first encounter with a black eye and bruised body. What's his aggressive move? Well, while the rest of the world viewed these clubs as menaces, Skip saw them as people in need of love, direction, support. He had a soft spot for these rebels, and he went after them with all he had. How? He put himself into their lives, and he came to earn their respect. His incredible story sounds like a movie. Street fights, hosting motorcycle club meetings in his home, white-haired old ladies sitting beside ex-felons in his church, exiting members of gangs, hiding out in the parsonage. He would visit club members in jail. He did weddings, funerals, and tried to broker peace between these clubs and the cops. To the motorcycle clubs, he was known as Preacher. His aggressive story is going to rattle and inspire us all today. Welcome to The Aggressive Life, Skipworth, the Preacher.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Dude, you still riding these days?
No, I gave my bike to my daughter.
How long ago was that?
About a year ago.
Oh, man. What kind of bike did you give to her?
A Sportster, 1200 Sportster.
How long have you had that bike?
About 6 years.
Okay, so this was not the bike that you did your, what do you call it? Motorcycle gang ministry? That sounds so cliche and so cheesy. Did you buy a motorcycle to hang with these guys, or did you already have one?
No, the Board of Evangelism in Nashville of the United Methodist Church got it for me. They heard about my involvement with some of the gangs, and so they said, what can we do to help out? And so I needed a bike, so they got a bike for me. We put the bike in a shop where the guy did specializing with custom building, and he made it fit the gangs because it was straight from the storeroom, and we had to make it look like a gang bike.
What was the bike stock?
It was a Triumph Bonneville.
Oh, interesting. Wow. They
didn't like anything other than Harleys, but they accepted my bike because it was so beautiful.
Well, so long as it's not a Honda or something like that. That's what really ticks those guys off. I don't judge anybody for any motorcycle they have. It's 2 wheels, great, enjoy your life. But in the whole motorcycle club or a club wannabe, it's like, it's okay if it's not a Harley, but they don't like bikes that are trying to look like a Harley but aren't a Harley, you know?
That's nice for the sidewalks where you're out on the street.
Man, I got to be around more people who fund buying me new motorcycles. That's wonderful. You had somebody who had a vision. That's unbelievable, man. Well, tell us about the first time you interact with them and they roughed you up a little bit.
I was appointed by the bishop to Northside in January of '69. And the first few weeks I was there, I found out that our church and the Presbyterian church down the street hosted these teen dances. So my first job there was to chaperone a teen dance at the Presbyterian church down the street, 2 blocks down the street. So Bob Wilson, a layman who's in charge of this whole teen association, we walked down to the Presbyterian church for the dance. And he says, usually it's pretty easy unless the brothers in arms are there. If they're there, we got problems. He said, maybe tonight they won't be there. So we walked down to the church, turned the corner, and there were all these Harleys parked in front of the church. We knew they were there. So we go in and I'm trying to make small talk to them. They won't talk to me. They're just by the band and setting up the band and so about an hour into the dance, things are going fine. And outside, we hear this big Harley sound, and all these bikers, the gladiators from northern Kentucky, are coming in, and they're at war with their brothers. Everybody there knows what's going to happen, so everybody forms a big circle in the gymnasium of this church, and 2 guys from the brothers and 2 guys from the gladiators are squaring off. And I say, no, not in the church. I'm a minister, so I go out there and try to break it up. And they take me on. I'm trying to get everybody outside to the steps. And Bob Wilson, the layman, he's trying to get him outside to the steps. And Bob gets hit, and he goes down, and he's out. Hits his head on the concrete, and the blood comes out, and his wife shows up. Somebody called his wife. And he comes down, and she comes down and gets him and takes him home. And then the police show up. The brothers in arms take on their bikes and take off. And I'm there with cut lip, and I'm got some bad ribs, and filthy Phil's hit me in the side with the boots, and it's pretty bad. So the first aid, 2 ambulances show up, and they take care of me and a few other people. And so I walk home, and I'm saying, I'm going to call a bishop and say, no more inner city church. No more Northside. I want to go someplace else. And that was my first encounter with them. That was on a Friday night. So Sunday morning comes. I'm going to preach. I got a black eye. One side of my face is bruised up. And I got some bad ribs. And the people in the church say, no more. No more dances. No more encounters with the brothers in arms. We're through with this stuff. So they had a board meeting Sunday night. What are we going to do about this? Our minister's getting all banged up. There's a newspaper and all that kind of stuff. The board says, no, we're through with this. We're getting out of this. Some little old lady on the board, Jewel Smith, about 65 years old, little frail thing, lives on Northside. She said, wait a minute. Maybe this is what God wants us to do, to get involved with this gang. And all of a sudden, the conversation goes that way. And I'm kind of glad to hear that because I thought we ought to get involved. But they took a vote. They voted to let Skipworth try it, see what happens. Well, several people left the church. And so the bottom line was we tried to do our best to get involved as a church with these guys.
Wow. So many questions. Like, first of all, what's a motorcycle club wanting to be at a church dance for high schoolers for?
Because the north side, like you said earlier, the streets belong to them. Nothing took place in Northside unless the brothers were in charge of it or okayed it. And although these guys were 25 to 45 years old, they were still in charge of the teen dances.
Fascinating. So you're a pastor. You've got normal pastoral duties. You know, you're going to board members. You're trying to figure out sermons. You're trying to preach and do all the normal things that every pastor does, no matter how big or small or what denomination the church is. Then you're going to take on this mission now to reach out to gangs, basically, these motorcycle clubs / gangs. What's that do for your job responsibilities?
It's been in the newspaper. The bishop in Ohio has been told about my encounter and I got beat up. And so Monday morning, I go to the district superintendent, the office of the Cincinnati district of the Methodist Church. And I go to his office and I say, here's what happened. And here's my board. My board says I should get involved. And he said, that's great, Skip. You go right ahead because that's a very important mission. They've been around a long time. And it's good that you're getting the church involved. What he was saying was, if you're stupid enough to do this, you're on your own. Thursday night of that week, the brothers in arms and the henchmen and devil's disciples are meeting at Marie's. Marie's is a bar down the street from the church, down the street from the church. Dirty, dingy, filthy place. That's where these three gangs meet. And Thursday night, they're going to be there. So I get my blue suit on, my collar, and I'm going down to Marie's to get acquainted, just to get acquainted. So I still got my eyes still swollen shut, and I got 2 stitches in my lip, and I'm still bruised up from ribs. And I go into Marie's, and I walk in the first time I've been there. I walk in this big, long bar on the left, just like Gunsmoke and the mirrors and all that stuff, and on the right-hand side, all these tables, all these derelicts and North Side guys, and in the back room is a little table and a big room, a jukebox and noise and everything else going on. That's where the gangs are, back there. So they got this curtain that you pull apart to go in there. So I pull the curtain apart and I walk in, and all of a sudden everybody starts turning toward the door for me. And everything's quiet. Somebody pulls a plug on the jukebox. It's real quiet now. And Butch, the president of the brothers, comes over and says, what the are you doing here? And I said, I just came to get acquainted. Well, Sarge and Filthy Phil come over to my left, and Filthy Phil says, we got rid of you the other night. And he said, what are you doing in here? And I said, I just came to get acquainted. And Sarge says, got you 5 seconds to get your ass out of here. And I said, so I made a mistake. I made a big mistake here. I said to them, what are you afraid of? That was a big mistake. I wake up at Christ Hospital. I've got my work cut out for me.
Wow. I want to pick that story up from there to hear your evolution. But things are going on in my mind right now are, we've heard of Hell's Angels and stuff, but the culture of motorcycle clubs and gangs, it's not around really anymore. None of us really know anybody who's actually in a motorcycle club. That's not the same as your local Harley owners group associated with the dealership taking rides. You're talking about something totally different. Are there any, when you looked at the guys who were in those gangs back then, were there any common or defining characteristics? I mean, are these white-collar guys, blue-collar guys, people who are hurting financially, people who are just bored? What's the common thread with these dudes?
The common denominator for all of them was that they were nothing before the gangs came along. In high school, they were nothing. They were nobody. But with the colors on of that gang and sitting on a Harley, they are somebody. For instance, I went to Laughlin High School to speak about my work with the gangs. After I'm done speaking, about 4 or 5 students come up to me and say, we're trying to find what happened to so-and-so. He joined the Iron Horsemen, but we don't understand why or how, because he was so meek and mild. He was a wallflower. He was a nothing. Quiet, gentle person. Now he's an Iron Horseman? Why is that? And the guy they're talking about was a rotten, no good, violent thug. He just changed. But he put those Iron Horseman colors on and still on a Harley, and he became somebody big, special. That's why that was the big thing. They were nobody until they got into these gangs. Became somebody big then.
Yeah, that's the draw for many guys to the Harley brand. Maybe not so much now, but when I started in it in the 90s and stuff, the draw to it was it gave you an alter ego. You know, and it's not, hey, I bought a Harley, now I'm going to go do illegal things. But you felt like a badass, you know? It was basically Halloween. You put all your gear on, you could take on a different persona, and you could be somebody different than you were before. But you're saying for these gangs, it wasn't that kind of innocent thing. It was it, now I get to become somebody I always wanted to be? Or was it, I have community for the first time, people like me, and I've got to bend to be like them? What was that like?
The response they get from people. For instance, I would pull up at a stop sign, a stoplight, and I'm waiting for the light to change. I'm on my Harley, and I had long hair and a beard and a whole bit, and people would pull their car up next to me, and they'd roll the window up and lock the door. I want to say, I'm a Methodist preacher. It's the response people give you that makes your ego blossom and go way out of proportion. It's a subculture, and the identity to this subculture is something I had never heard of before. When I got to Northside, I knew nothing about these outlaw motorcycle gangs. But there are 1%ers. They have a patch on their colors that say 1%. They are 1% of the population. The rest of them, 99% of people, are jags or stone jags. I was a stone jag. Ministers and cops are stone jags. So 99% of people are jags. 1%ers, the Iron Horsemen, the Coffin Cheaters, the Satan's Angels, those guys are 1%ers. They're 1%. They are independent, free. Nobody tells us what to do. That's the bottom line. Nobody tells us what to do. We're going to do what we want to do. That's that subculture. They don't listen to anybody or do anything. They want to do what they want to do.
So round one, you get beat up at a church high school dance. How about that? That's wonderful. Let's get some volunteers to come and serve the church. You get beat up at a high school dance. Round two is you voluntarily walk into a bar where these dudes are meeting in the back room, and now you get put in the hospital. What's round three?
Well, round three was going back to the church and saying, how are we going to deal with this? And so it was time for the Lenten Bible study. Well, by this time, the Brothers in Arms have come to my house. They've already beat me up twice, but they come to the house now, the parsonage, right next to the church, and say, we are going to meet in your basement. I said, wait. I said, I came and associate with you guys, and you're going to meet in my basement? Yeah. I said, but you didn't ask me. No, we don't ask. We just tell you. So they met in the basement. And so I introduced the Lenten Bible study to them. And they said, wait, we're just going to meet here in the basement because the cops ran us out of the last place we're meeting. So we're just going to meet here. We're not going to go to Lenten Bible study. And Filthy Phil says, maybe we ought to go to the Lenten Bible study. It might be our way of getting through some of these people in the community. More power. So the next Lenten Bible study Wednesday night, everybody's there, but the Brothers in Arms aren't showing up, except Filthy. He shows up. And so he goes through all the motions, he has a meal, the Bible study sitting there, and the next meeting of the Brothers in Arms, he says, look, I went to the Lenten Bible study, and you're going to go next time too, talking to the guys. You're all going to go next time. So sure enough, they came. And it got to the point, to the end of the Lenten study, Filthy Phil brought a big sheet cake. And it said, thanks to all the people at Northside Church. And all of a sudden, things are kind of changing a little bit. And so it's getting to be more of a possibility. People are identifying with these guys.
That's fantastic. And so what happens then? These guys are just your friend going forward? Are you their how do you come to know, categorize yourself? Are you a friend of theirs? Are you one of them? What's that look like?
They judge a guy from the neck down, and they beat me up twice, and they figure I'm going to be lost. They won't pay attention to me except use my basement. About maybe March, April, sometime in that year, I'm down at Clifton at the UC campus. A lot of gangs gathered there. That was a big spot to go. At that time, the hippies were big time and all that going on. I'm down there with my jeans and my shirt and my bike and all that. I'm with them. And I've not gotten acquainted yet with the Iron Horsemen, but I am with a few of the gangs. The Gladiators are there from northern Kentucky. And they're there in mass with all the other gangs. And they got a guy named Little Jesus in the Gladiators. And so he says for everybody to hear, the place is packed with people on the street there. He says, I'm going to see what the preacher's made out of. He pulls a knife. Before that happened, the Attorney General's office in Ohio heard about me doing what I'm doing with the gangs. And they were interested. They wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay. So they had an undercover cop and walking the streets down there, getting acquainted. He was known as a drug pusher, a drug dealer, this undercover cop. And so I knew him. I knew of him, and he was no good. He was no good scum. Looked like it, acted like it. He was no good. And so I'm down there with some gangs one night, and he motions to me like this. He wants to talk to me in the alley. Okay, yeah, you're right. I want to give him the best sermon I ever had. And I start talking to him, and he pulls out this badge. And what? Surprised the heck out of me. He said, I haven't got much time. Here's the story. We got this weapon for you because we're concerned about your safety. I said, no guns, no gun. I can't, I don't know a gun. It's not a gun. It's not a gun. It's a hose. And he stuffs it with cotton and mace and rubbing alcohol. And he says, now, you take this hose with you. Wherever you go with these guys, take the hose with you. And I said, what am I going to do with this thing? He said, when you get in trouble, you hit them with it. Now, there's three things about this hose I got to tell you. Otherwise, you're in bad shape. Three things. First of all, when you hit a guy, don't come down like that. Hit him with a backhand in the face. So across the nose. Gets in their eyes and they can't see, then you got them. He said, the second thing you got to know about this hose is don't forget it. When you go out with these guys, don't forget your hose. He said, the third thing is the most important of all. He said, don't miss. And so he hands me this hose. And I got it someplace here. I brought it with me.
Yeah, you have it? This is awesome. I don't know how many listeners are going to make this thing right now. Let's check it out.
It's the only thing I've ever had. The only thing I kept with all these guys. Here's the hose.
Huh. So that's the actual hose itself. That's not a recreation. It's basically a garden hose I'm looking at with duct tape around one end for your handle.
That's right. Duct tape. And to keep it from leaking, he said, now keep it from leaking when you put it in your coat. Put baking grease on each of those dots. And the hose got very big news from the people. All the gangs, they would say, has he got his hose with him? But here little Jesus pulls a knife on me. Everybody's a big circle now. Watching me take on little Jesus. I was scared to death, of course. But he looked like this evil thing in his face. All of a sudden I got angry. And the adrenaline started really hitting me hard. And so I hit him before he hit me, got me. Hit him across the face, and he grabbed his hand like this and dropped his knife, and I went nuts. I lost it. I started pounding him, and a couple of girls from the crowd said, stop hitting him. Well, some gladiators took him and put him in a car and took off. But I was so whacked out. It was my first time. And I was scared to death, and I was angry. I was out of it. So I got on my bike and went home.
That's fantastic.
It was terrible.
Well, no, I'll tell you what's fantastic about it, though. It's fantastic about it, and I don't know what your personal opinion on this or what your biblical belief is, but I'm of the opinion when Jesus says, turn the other cheek, I believe he's talking about when someone insults you, not when someone is actually pounding you. He says, someone hits you on your right cheek, turn the left as well. You get hit in your right cheek because someone gives you a backhand with their hand, not because it's an actual violent act. I don't think God is up for us just allowing someone to pound on us, So I don't have any biblical problem with what you did. That's pretty impressive. I don't know. You might feel different. Do you feel badly? Do you feel like you shouldn't have whacked him with that hose?
No, I otherwise I've been cut up. I'm
right. Exactly. Now you look. I'm looking at you on Zoom here right now. At this point in your life, what was your physical stature? Are you tall? Are you short? Are you muscular? Are you a normal guy? What?
I'll tell you. I was a power lifter. I felt I was able to take care of myself. But I felt this was the need. The church didn't do this stuff. The church stayed away from that kind of thing. Now, Crossroads really has a great outdoor, beyond the four walls ministry. That's what we need to do at the church. But we don't. We want to be comfortable.
Yeah, you're right. It's so... this podcast is called The Aggressive Life. It's really not a church podcast, but that's my day job, running a church. So it comes up. But yeah, the whole church gig is, everybody looks the same. Every church thinks they're unique, but they're not. There's no unique churches. Everyone's got their music they think is great music. Everyone has video now. Everyone has sermons that are up to date. Everyone's got a hip preacher, or at least used to be a hip preacher. Everybody's got student ministry. Everyone's got children. Everyone's got some special thing at Christmas. All those, and we have to do those things. Those are important, fine things, but I'm most intrigued. Those aren't aggressive moves. Those are incremental improvement moves to increase the effectiveness of those things. But I find that the biggest breakthroughs happen with the aggressive moves. Those are things that happen outside the building. They happen outside of the normal rhythms of ministry. So I'm sitting here, I'm just hyper challenged by you. I'm just thinking, man, I don't know what I would do in that situation, but I'm glad you did it. That's freaking great.
Here's the thing. When I got beat up the first time, I spent the next couple of days trying to figure out, do I call the bishop and move, or do I get a book by a minister who worked with motorcycle gangs? Do I read that book and get some ideas? I didn't know anything about this. Knew nothing about outlaw motorcycle gangs. Nothing about the inner city church. I was greener in grass.
Was this a normal thing for you up to this point in your life? You saw an opportunity that caused some people to run away, and you chose to step into it. Was this a pattern in your life before this took place?
No, this is my second parish. My first parish was a rural church in northern Ohio. I'd gone to seminary in Dayton. I graduated from seminary, got ordained. I went to a small rural parish in northern Ohio. And then the bishop appoints me to an inner city church. Talk about a contrast. And I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't know anything about it.
But I'm not talking about motorcycles. I'm putting motorcycles aside there. Have you had a pattern of seeing opportunity and stepping into it and doing things people hadn't done?
Yes. Because I think it's because my parents are half-breed Indians from Oklahoma. And when we moved to Illinois during the oil boom in the late 30s, we were known as half-breed oil field trash. And so I kind of identified with the outcasts, because we were. And there was that figurative sense about being across the tracks, outcast, So I kind of identified with them.
Your story is so inspiring to me, not just about how you push the bounds of what a pastor should do as a part of your normal day job, but also how you became actual friends with these dudes. I mean, there was genuine friendships that took place. And am I right that these guys would actually babysit your kids eventually?
The babysitter I had was down the street. She's a freshman in high school. And so she was regular. Well, 2:00 in the morning, I get a phone call that I got a member of the church in the hospital. So I got to go down there to the hospital. There's 3 henchmen in the living room watching cartoons. So what do? I can't call a babysitter at 2:00 in the morning. So I get those 3 guys, and I say to them, I got to go to the hospital, and I got 2 kids upstairs. You guys have got to babysit. If anything goes wrong, you'll be sent away to prison. You'll never get out. I'll see to that. They said, don't worry, preacher, don't worry. So I make the hospital call, I come back, and things were great. They said, Nancy came down the stairs just to check in to see how you're doing. And I told her to the hospital, and she went back to bed. So things were cool. Today, Nancy and Yale will tell you that their best babysitters were Filthy Phil.
Filthy. I just can't get over Filthy Phil. I like giving nicknames. I've never thought of that one. I know some Phils. They're going to be Filthy Phil from now on. That's just unbelievable. Filthy Phil. I mean, these names are unbelievable. Satan's disciples, the henchman, Filthy Phil. Gosh.
How about Crazy Horse? Crazy Horse was he was Iron Horseman. He was the enforcer for the Iron Horseman. He was 6'2", 225. In high school, he played fullback and middle linebacker. He dropped out his senior year. This guy was, for instance, they were at war with the Outlaws, a big gang in the United States. And so Crazy Horse steals a bazooka, and 25 Iron Horsemen and 3 cars go to Crawfordsville, Indiana, where the Outlaws have a big meeting house. And Crazy Horse blows up their meeting house with this bazooka. They get in their cars and the bikes and come back to Ohio from Indiana. They're almost at Harrison, Ohio. And they get caught before they get there by Indiana State Patrolman. He pulls them over, but over the last car. But they all stop. All the horsemen stop. All the bikes, the cars. And Round, the president of the Iron Horsemen, is first in line, way up in front. He gets off his bike and starts walking back to where the cop is. This is a rookie cop. And he walks up to see them. He's making small talk because he's scared. All these bikers come up to him, and he says, I just want to tell you the last car had a tail light out. And, okay. They just blew up a house, but he sees them with the tail light out. So, no problem. And so he walks back to his patrol car. No problem. He said, just get it fixed when you get home. No problem. He goes back to the car, police car. He looks in the back seat of one of the cars and sees a bazooka. So he goes back to his car, and the guys are all back on their bikes, but they're waiting. They know something's going to happen. All of a sudden, from the Ohio side, 2 state cars are coming. They're coming in the lane going east. They're in the lane coming west. These two police cars with the sirens on, the lights, and they pull up. And they got 2 more cars coming on the other side. And so the short story is 6 of them went to the Terre Haute Federal Prison. The rest of them went home. It was Crazy Horse. I get a phone call about 10 years ago from a minister in Tampa, Florida. He says, I just read your book about wear your collar. He says, great. You talked about it, and he said, by the way, after about 10 minutes of talking on the phone, he says, by the way, whatever happened to Crazy Horse? And I said, well, he got killed in a police fight back in 75, 76. He said, no. He said, a member of my church. I said, what? I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it. And so what he's going to do, he said, I'll tell you what we do. We're going to have This Is Your Life Crazy Horse at the church. And you'll be behind the curtain, and I'll be talking about this book, but Crazy Horse is in the book, written by a minister in Cincinnati. And then I'll make a phone call to you. And I can't get a hold of you on the phone call. So you come out, that's your cue to come out behind the stage, or behind the curtain. And so sure enough, we got this all arranged. And Crazy Horse is on stage in the church, and I'm behind the curtain, and I come out. First time I've seen Crazy Horse since 73. This is about 10 years ago. And talk about a hug. It was tears. It was unbelievable. And so after that, he and I went around the Midwest to speak to groups and talk about friendship, talk about ties. It was great.
So would you look at that as your biggest win? Because that was one of my questions for you is what were your biggest wins as you look back on this?
That was one. Filthy Phil was another one. I was at Montgomery in Cincinnati at Church of the Savior United Methodist Church on Pfeiffer Road. And he came and spoke on Stewardship Sunday about giving. And it was unbelievable. So those two guys are wins. And then Sarge, who beat me up at this one bar, he went to Vietnam. And in Vietnam, he wrote me these letters of how the difference I made in his life and all that kind of stuff. And when he got home from Vietnam, I married him, and it was great. It was great. So there we go. And then one Christmas, the Devil's Disciples put on a Christmas party. You won't believe. I talked to them one night at a bar. I said, I really would like to have a Christmas party for the kids at Northside. They're all poor. They need something. They don't have a thing. I'd like to have a Christmas party. And I can't afford it. And so the president of the disciples said to me, we'll take care of it for you. We'll take care of it for you. And I thought, well, what does that mean? He said, we'll bring Santa Claus and his elves and all the toys those kids can have. We'll bring it. So we had a Christmas party. The president of the Devils played Santa Claus. The mamas came as elves. And they dressed up like elves. They was like Girl Bride Scouts. And it was fantastic. And they brought packages, big sacks of presents, of toys. But the kids had the most fantastic Christmas party ever in Northside.
That's fantastic. You know, sometimes, normally we talk about making the aggressive moves. Normally there's a little incentive because if you do the aggressive thing, you can get more ahead in life. You know, if you're only investing financially in bonds, you're not having a hard time getting ahead financially. But you got to do some more aggressive plays in the market to get ahead financially, right? That's just one little sector. And I think sometimes I want to make the aggressive move occupationally because I want to advance, whatever. But this one, I'm listening to this, I'm going like, it isn't like this one made your life better. This aggressive move just made your life richer and deeper. What do you think is the key for us connecting with somebody different than us?
Well, man, caring. You got to care for people. Got to care for. That's the bottom line with Jesus. It was all about relationships with Jesus. Caring for other people. We don't do enough of that. We don't think very much anymore. We don't think. We do stuff and we try to make rationale for it. We don't think. But caring is the bottom line.
That's fantastic. Skip, if someone wants to follow up with you, if they want to be more in tune with what your life has been like, your book, just give us a little plug of how people can get more information.
My email address, how about that?
Oh, that's great.
Gene Skipworth 15 at gmail.com.
I think you're the first person who's given the personal email. That's awesome. That shows how much you want to connect. And his book is entitled Wear Your Collar. Man, I love when someone takes us into another world. Skip just took us into another world. And I think that this is probably part of our problem here in our country. Everyone's staying inside of their own world, staying inside of their own philosophies, inside their own party, inside of their own clique. I'm pushed by this. This is really, really good. Let's make some aggressive moves. Let's not demonize people who are different than us. Let's stick our neck out. We might actually get our face bloodied, but in the end, it may enrich our lives. So there you have it. Welcome to another episode of The Aggressive Life. And thank you so much, Skip. You've been a blessing. We'll see you next time on The Aggressive Life.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for listening. For all things aggressive living, why don't you head over to briantome.com. Find my new book, Move, a guide to get up and go forward, as well as articles, and much, much more. And no matter where you listen to podcasts, why don't you take a second and leave us a rating, leave us a review. It really, really helps us drive new listeners to the show. We want to help as many people as possible, just like we may have helped you. We want to help others. So why don't you help us out? And if you want to connect, find me on Instagram at Brian Tome. Aggressive Life with Brian Tome is a production of Crossroads Church, Cincinnati, Ohio.